There's a seismic shift brewing in Formula one that's tied to one of the sport's most iconic brands. A company renowned for luxury, performance, and James Bond's favourite ride is now in deep waters. But what happens when the maker of some of the world's most elite cars can't afford to keep its foot in the F1 door? And what does this mean for one of the sport's most promising teams? Today we're diving into the jaw-dropping decision that could reshape the Aston Martin legacy in Formula One. And it's not what you think. Aston Martin, the luxury automaker, has just dropped a bombshell that's rippling across the Formula One world. They're offloading their stake in the Aston Martin Formula One team. At first glance, this might seem like a curveball for casual fans, but anyone paying attention to the financial health of Aston Martin as a brand knows this move has been building for a while. The company has been walking a financial tightrope for years, and maintaining an F1 team is no cheap endeavour. Now they're tightening their belts, and the racing outfit is on the chopping block. But here's the twist. Despite the decision to sell, the racing team's ambitions remain sky high. Aston Martin Racing is still charging full speed ahead into next year, determined to be at the forefront of F1's evolving landscape. In today's breakdown, we'll unpack the reasons behind this shocking sale, dissect the eyebrow-raising valuation the team received, and take a look at what Fernando Alonso has to say about what's coming next. Stay tuned. This one's layered. This scenario isn't exactly unheard of in the Formula One universe. Time and again, we've watched big-name car brands swoop in to buy racing teams, hoping that some trackside glory will fuel car sales. They spend lavishly, hundreds of millions in some cases, only to realise later that the returns just don't match the hype. Eventually, they hit the brakes and sell. Running an F1 team, after all, is like owning a very flashy yacht. It's luxurious, expensive, and mostly for show, unless you're flush with cash or trying to dodge taxes creatively. If a car company is in good financial standing and led by someone with a personal dream of dominating motorsports, the team serves as a shiny write-off. But trying to use a race team to claw out of a financial crisis, that's a losing bet more often than not. In Aston Martin's case, this sale reads like a textbook example of where things go wrong. The legendary Marque, most famous for being 07's car of choice, is currently in disarray. The makers of the Vantage, Vanquish, DB12 and DBX have seen their stock value nosedive by 50% over the past year. A staggering loss. For context, that kind of drop is catastrophic in the world of business. The latest financial report showed a brutal 34% decline in revenue in Q2 alone. A big part of that is due to weaker than expected interest in its flagship hypercars, such as the Valkyrie and the upcoming Valhalla. But the bigger hammer blow? A new US tariff policy that's made things significantly worse. While the UK and US have agreed to reduce the tariff on British cars from a punishing 27.5% to 10%, there's a catch. Only the first 100,000 vehicles from the entire UK qualify for the lower rate each year. After that, it's back to nearly 30%. This is disastrous news for smaller manufacturers like Aston Martin. For the average American buyer, looking at a $100,000 Aston Martin, that tariff suddenly pushes the price tag to a whopping $127,500. The company doesn't cover that extra cost. The buyer does. And for many, that kind of price hike is enough to push them toward a different brand. As you can imagine, this puts enormous pressure on the company's already strained finances. So what's the fastest way to bring in a large influx of cash? Sell the F1 stake. While Aston Martin doesn't actually own the entire Formula One operation, it does hold a 4.6% minority interest, just enough to get its logo splashed across the car's bodywork. But the story gets more tangled. The team itself is managed by Lawrence Stroll, the Canadian billionaire behind the U-Tree investment group. His consortium not only runs the F1 team, but also owns a 33% slice of the Aston Martin car company. Thanks to a pre-existing brand agreement, the F1 squad will still race under the Aston Martin name, even though the actual manufacturer is cutting financial ties. So yes, Aston Martin Racing will still be called Aston Martin, but the car company itself won't be backing it anymore. It's confusing, sure, but also a sign of how branding and ownership in F1 are often two very different things. Now let's talk numbers, because this sale says a lot about F1's growing business appeal. That 4.6% share of the team, it's being sold for a jaw-dropping $146 million. That figure puts the full valuation of the Aston Martin F1 team at roughly $3.2 billion. That's a massive jump. To put that into perspective, just last year, when the team struck a deal with both HPS Investment Partners and Arctos Partners, the valuation was around $2.4 billion. Go back even further to 2023, and the team's paper value was just $1.3 billion. So in under 2 years, the team's worth has skyrocketed by 246%. And that kind of growth is almost unheard of, and it's proof of how hot the F1 market is among investors right now. Rewind to 2018. Back then, the team we now know as Aston Martin F1 was still operating under the Racing Point name, a team riddled with financial woes and instability. That's when Canadian billionaire Lawrence Stroll stepped in and bought the entire outfit for just $117 million. Fast forward about 7 years and the numbers are staggering. Based on the current valuation of over $3.2 billion, Stroll has turned that initial investment into a return of more than 2,735%. Of course, it's not just luck. Stroll has poured a massive amount of capital into the project. He modernized the operation, sold off minority shares at growing valuations, and greenlit the construction of a cutting-edge factory in Silverstone that reportedly cost over $200 million. He didn't just buy a struggling team, he rebuilt it from the ground up. And despite the headlines about Aston Martin, the manufacturer, selling off their stake, Stroll isn't going anywhere. He still holds control of the team, and both he and his son, Lance Stroll, will remain fixtures in the garage heading into 2026. So while the ownership landscape is shifting, the faces leading the charge remain the same. And that 2026 season is already shaping up to be a turning point. Let's be real, 2025 hasn't exactly been a dream year for Aston Martin. After a promising start back in early 2023, the team's form has been in steady decline. As of now, they're sitting in 8th place in the constructors' standings and don't look likely to climb much higher in the packed midfield. Fernando Alonso, the team's seasoned superstar, seems to have accepted that fact. He's already shifted his focus to what lies beyond 2025, specifically the massive regulation overhaul coming in 2026. Speaking candidly, Alonso admitted that not much is likely to change this season, and that most of the team's energy is already being poured into developing their next generation car. Last weekend's outing at Spa-Francorchamps during the Belgian Grand Prix was a painful reminder of their current struggles. Alonso came home in 18th, while Lance Stroll crossed the line 14th. Even though the team made setup changes to adapt to wet conditions, which the FIA seemingly tried to avoid, Alonso refused to use that as an excuse. "We adjusted the setup in the morning to prepare for the rain, but that's not why we were slow," he said post-race. "We were half a second off the Q2 cutoff, not because of setup, just because we weren't quick enough." Alonso's blunt appraisal paints a clear picture. The current car, the AMR25, simply isn't cutting it. He estimates that a staggering 80% of the team's attention is now directed at 2026, not just from the engineering department, but the drivers too. "Besides maybe the McLaren guys, the rest of us are already dreaming about next season," he added. "There's not much more to gain in the second half of this year." But there's a silver lining. Aston Martin's long-term vision is starting to take shape, and it looks promising. With a brand new technology campus, a works engine deal with Honda, and even the reported involvement of Adrian Newey helping shape the next car, there's genuine reason for optimism. The foundation is there for a true breakthrough season. The driver lineup, for now, is expected to stay the same, meaning reserve driver Felipe Drugovich may once again be left on the sidelines. But recent sponsor activity has sparked speculation. Aston Martin just announced a string of new commercial partners, including Tekla, a Latin American company that referred to Drugovich specifically as an F1 driver in their release. Interesting wording for someone technically without a seat. Could this be a hint that Drugovich is destined for one of the 2 Cadillac seats still yet to be officially confirmed? He's not the only Aston Junior hoping for a promotion. Jack Crawford, a US-born prospect aligned with the team, has gone public about seeking a full-time drive in 2026. Speaking to Autosport, Crawford explained that his future largely depends on how he finishes the current F2 season. If I win the championship, it opens a lot of doors. Whether it's as a reserve or a full-time driver, we're looking for any opportunity, whether that's with Aston Martin, Cadillac, or somewhere else. Cadillac, for their part, have expressed interest in having an American driver in their lineup, but they've also been clear. Nationality alone won't earn a seat. It has to be merit-based. Currently sitting 3rd in the F2 standings and just 9 points off the lead, Crawford is in a strong position. If he clinches the title, it might be just the boost he needs to earn a shot at the big leagues. So, what do you think? Could Crawford or Drugovich break through to the F1 grid in 2026? Will Aston Martin finally deliver on their massive investment? Or is this just another high-stakes gamble in the sport's most unpredictable team? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one, especially the juicy financials behind F1, go check out our recent breakdown of whether Christian Horner might actually be buying his own team. Thanks for watching, and as always, drive safe and see you next time.